If you want to help out and support the channel, there are a few things you can do. Go check out Flipside Gaming and use the promo code VOIDMAGE in all caps. This will get you 10% off all orders $10 or more. And if you go shopping on tcgplayer.com, go use my affiliate link in the description below. That way all purchases you make will go towards helping the channel. And lastly, go check out my Patreon. It's a more direct way that you can help the channel while also getting some more interaction. I appreciate all of your support. If you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. This time we're going to talk about the 10 best group hug cards in the Commander format. Last time I did this video, it was when my channel was still pretty new. Believe it or not, most of the cards are still going to be on the list. While we have received some newer support for group hug, some of the oldest cards are still going to give you the best value, and it just seems appropriate to do this kind of video for this time of the year. We have Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, so if you're feeling a bit generous, hopefully this video will give you some inspiration to build your own group hug decks. It's a theme that I enjoy very much in Commander. It's not super competitive, and it can be incredibly political, where the goal isn't to just win the game as quick as possible. Sometimes you can have a lot of fun willing someone else to a victory. Starting it off with some honorable mentions, we have Mikokoro, Center of the Sea. This and Gaia Reach Sanitarium, they're pretty much the lands that let everybody draw a card. Not the best card draw that we can get for everyone, but it's hard to really beat that in land form when you don't have any artifacts or enchantments that are going to give everybody cards. Just pay a few mana every activation, and you're going to give everybody a bit of card draw. Victory Chimes is a newer card from Battle Bond, one that I think should be in just about every group hug deck. Where I run into a problem with this card is that most of my group hug decks tend to be 5 color. Mana rocks that don't tap for colored mana, while they're still pretty good, I find more often than not I just need something that gives me colored mana. If you want to play a bit more politically, you don't have to play buddy with everybody, and cards like these tend to be pretty good if you want to make a more political group hug deck. Feldergriff, kind of the same thing. You don't have to make friends with everybody. Feldergriff is just an example of one of those older creatures that really formed the foundation of what group hug is. You are going to be making deals with other players. You're not in a good position to win all by yourself. And not only do you have one thing that you can do, but you have multiple abilities, giving you the ability to change up your strategy. But I would be lying if I said we haven't received much better Commander options. And then there is Corona False God, which is one of my favorite Commander options for group hug. Not exclusively group hug, which is why I think she belongs in the honorable mentions. You do have tribal decks that want to run her for that aggressiveness. But this is another element of group hug, is sort of being non-confrontational. If you attack, you want to attack because you have to, and by doing that, your opponents are not going to take it personally. It's sort of the same thing with Ruhana the Fomori. They're most likely not going to hold a grudge over it, and the fact that Corona pretty much gets a turn with everybody very much removes that target from you. Now onto the list. Number 10 is Folio of Fancies. Also going to give an honorable mention to Minds Aglow and Prosperity. Both are going to be blue spells that give card draw for everybody. Folio of Fancies has the advantage of being a reusable ability. Those other two spells are just one-time uses for the most part. This also gives everybody no maximum hand size, and you also have another ability that could mill out your opponents, so it is not just purely a group hug card. You do get a more competitive advantage later in the game, but naturally card draw is going to be such a big deal in group hug. If you don't have the card draw, you're going to suffer because your deck is already pretty weak. You at least want as many cards as possible. Number 9 is Heartwood Storyteller, going to give card draw for a lot of players, mostly the ones that are not going to be casting non-creature spells, which makes it a little bit more political. Some of the most competitive decks in the format are going to be ones that cast a bunch of non-creature spells, whether it be Storm or artifacts. In a game that could very well feel like Arch Enemy, you might as well help everybody else out, including yourself. Probably one of the most underrated green creatures in Commander as a whole doesn't even have to be in a group hug deck. If you feel like you want to add more politics to your game of Commander, it's not always the worst thing in the world to give other players an advantage, so long as they're not the ones in the lead, and this is a perfect card because it is meant to punish the player who is casting a bunch of non-creature spells. And number 8 is Braids, Conjurer, Adept. This is more like pure group hug because it is designed to benefit everybody. Obviously the one advantage going to you because you have the deck that is built around Braids. You can fill it with a bunch of massive artifacts, creatures. That way you always have something to cheat into play with her ability. Very commonly seen with Eldrazi for that same reason. A theme with group hug is symmetry. For the most part, you want to be able to help everybody. You're going to have to make up your mind sooner or later as to who you want to team up with. After all, you are also trying to win win the game, but it helps if you start off the game non-confrontational, which means even if you know someone's probably going to be ahead and you might have to gang up against them, you don't want to start off the game playing like that. You want to keep an open mind, and usually you decide who you gang up on based on how they treat you as the group hug deck. Number 7 is Fractured Identity. This is a perfect card for group hug decks. It's kind of like Heartwood Storyteller. Yeah, it's not going to be 100% symmetrical. You are going to be picking on one player, getting rid of their card, and pretty much giving everybody else a token copy of it. It's still what I would consider to be a group hug card, especially if you need removal. It's about as close as you can get. You get fantastic exiling removal, and you're also helping out other players, which again, in an arch enemy kind of game, this is exactly what you want. You're not just in it for yourself. Helping out one of your weaker opponents is also going to help you out. Number 6 is Selvala, Explorer Returned. Another card with great symmetry. It is also a card that is not just all about your opponents. You are going to be getting some life gain and some mana. But the idea here is that however much mana you end up getting, however much life you gain, giving everybody an extra card is worth it. It's not going to make you a huge target. She makes a pretty solid group hug commander, although I will say having only access to a couple colors does limit her potential, so she does end up being a much better one of the 99 in bigger group hug decks that play 4 or 5 colors. But you get pretty much everything you want here. You get life gain to stay in the game longer, you get extra card draw, and you get more mana to work with, all while adhering to the group hug theme. Number 5 is going to be a couple cards, Mana Flare and Heartbeat of Spring. Mana Flare being the original one. The idea of just giving everybody double mana is crazy. It gets out of control. It's not always something I would recommend because you are going to have opponents that all they need is a little bit of extra mana. By giving them double mana, it'll open up their strategy entirely. They can just go off right after you do this, so it does have that element of danger. The upside is that it also opens up all of your other opponents, so it is at least going to speed up the game. People will be able to do whatever they want. If your opponent has a Zakama, they'll be delighted. If your opponent has a Palinchron, they'll also be delighted. Part of playing group hug is living with the consequences of your actions and understanding very well that you're probably not going to be the lead dog. I have found, however, that I'm having the most fun in games where the whole point of me playing is to not just dominate, but to sit back and watch my opponents as they interact with each other. So you can kind of play instigator, and the benefit of a group hug deck is that you're most often not going to be the target. If your opponents have very powerful removal, they're not likely going to waste it on something that's benefiting them. And number 4 is Kineos and Tyro of Meletis, probably one of the best pure group hug commander options. But this is exactly what you want. You want good card draw, you want extra mana ramp, and you're offering this up to pretty much anybody, all while giving you a big 8 toughness creature. If you want to make a deck where you're not the target, Kineos and Tyro makes that perfect group hug commander deck. You will pretty much get the better of the card draw and the ramp. If you had to turn an otherwise well-known group hug commander into a more competitive deck, you have a very solid engine with Kineos and Tyro. Number 3 is Collective Voyage, with a nod to Tempt with Discovery and New Frontiers. The idea is to just give everybody as many lands as possible in one go-round. Collective Voyage, I think, is probably the best at doing this because it's not just your effort. If your opponents have mana and they just really want as many lands as possible, they can opt to dump as much mana as they want into this card, and then everybody will benefit off of that. It's pretty much a better version of New Frontiers. I also like Tempt with Discovery because you can get any land you want. I don't find it to be as much of a group hug card though, because it is mostly going to benefit you. Collective Voyage can get out of hand pretty quickly. If it is late game and everybody has all the mana to work with, quite often people search up literally every basic land in their deck, and it can get quite chaotic after that. I will say it's probably more interesting than dropping out a Mana Flare because you're going to have people that just simply don't have as many basic lands. Someone will end up in a more favorable position because they ended up having 30 basic lands in their deck compared to someone who was playing 5 colors and maybe only had 10. So the game can be decided with a card like this. You're still going to be helping everybody out though. And then number 2 is Rites of Flourishing. Everything I said about Kineos and Tyro, about Selvala, Braids, Conjurer, Adept, it pretty much applies to this card. Everyone is feeling the love. It is one of the easiest cards to throw into pretty much every group hug deck because, well, most group hug decks are green. You also have the benefit of it just working out really well in land decks for giving you an extra land drop. But this is fundamentally what group hug is about. The way you succeed in Commander is most likely going to be because you had really good card draw or really good ramp or a reasonable amount of both. It is such a good formula for success. Doesn't really matter what else your deck wants to do. Giving everybody those resources, it's going to set them up to win. And that's sort of what you want to do as a group hug deck. Are you going to be masquerading as a friend for someone? Maybe. But this card right here says that you want to give other players the chance at winning. And by doing that, you're taking the target off of your back early in the game. And then number 1, this is the ultimate group hug card because it can pretty much be played everywhere. Colorless decks that need extra card draw will also want to play Howling Mine. Also a nod to Temple Bell and Font of Mythos. You are giving everybody an extra card draw. Now there are ways to manipulate this. You can tap it, of course, to prevent your opponents from drawing those cards. But this is just the easiest way to get on people's good side. For just 2 generic mana, it doesn't have to be any kind of mana, you are helping everybody else at the table. I do prefer Temple Bell over Howling Mine just because it gives you the option of saying no, and you can be the first one to benefit off of the extra card draw. To me, it has an advantage over Rites of Flourishing, just being colorless, a little bit cheaper, just being flexible enough to see play in so many decks, even decks that are not just group hug, but are a bit more political. It has not only been one of the more interesting cards in Commander, but one of the more interesting cards in all of Magic. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about group hug. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video. Just wanted to say thanks to the patrons who are supporting me on patreon.com. Go check it out. There are different tiers with their own rewards. One of them is having your name in the credits of my videos. I know it's not much, but it's something that I can do to show my appreciation. Thanks again and have a good day.